They say the truth can hide in plain sight. Sometimes, all it takes is a single moment, a single capture on a lens to upend a life built on lies. In this extraordinary story, a routine traffic stop devolves into a storm of suspicion, intimidation, and unimaginable heartbreak. On the surface, it seemed like a typical encounter, a cop with a badge, a driver with nothing to hide. But once the bodycam footage emerged, an entire city reeled in shock. Relationships were tested, reputations were destroyed, and unexpected heroes rose from the ashes. Brace yourself for a tale so twisted, you won't believe how it ends. Officer Travis White gripped the steering wheel of his squad car so tightly that his knuckles turned white. The neon glow of Philadelphia's bustling nightlife lit the early evening sky. He had just finished responding to a non-urgent call and was now prowling the streets with a restlessness that had become his norm over the past few weeks. For the better part of a decade, Officer White had been a fixture in the Philadelphia Police Department's 2021 district, known to many locals as the heart of North Philly. He was tall, imposing, and wore a perpetual scowl that sent a clear message to those around him. Don't mess with me. But there was another side to Travis White that few people ever saw, a dangerous resentment simmering just below the surface. He was the product of a turbulent upbringing in which prejudices had been passed down like a family heirloom. His father, also an officer, had been vocal about his distrust for the city's growing diversity back when White was just a kid. Seeds of animosity had been planted early, and despite living in one of the country's most diverse cities, Travis never fully purged those biases. Instead, he nurtured them. Over time, subtle resentments and stereotypes evolved into outright racism. Still, Travis was no rookie. He was careful. He'd learned how to wear a mask of professionalism when needed, to hide his deep-seated views behind polite words and stoic expressions. He rarely lashed out publicly, rarely did anything that might threaten his position in the department. Yet, in small ways in the choices he made, in the stops he initiated, his prejudices showed. He always found a reason to stop the suspicious Black or Latino driver, always found a reason to question them a little longer than was strictly necessary. That evening, he felt more agitated than usual. A call had come in about a disturbance at a nearby bar. Two men were arguing, possibly about to become violent, but that call was resolved before he arrived. So he patrolled aimlessly, adrenaline unsatisfied. Restlessness accompanied him. He wanted to feel in control. It fueled him, gave him a twisted sense of purpose. Just as he was about to flip on the radio to check for new calls, he spotted a gray sedan driving the speed limit, cruising through a green light. His instincts told him it was an ordinary driver, nothing special. But as he glanced through the window, the shape of the driver's silhouette told him the man behind the wheel was Black. Officer White decided, in a moment of pettiness, that he would pull this car over. Why? Because he could. Because his father used to say, better safe than sorry, stop them before they have the chance to do something. Travis White had taken that to heart. He flicked on his lights and watched as the sedan jerked forward momentarily before signaling and pulling over. Officer White took his time. He unfastened his seatbelt, turned off the ignition, and reached for the brim of his hat. The body camera pinned to his uniform flickered a tiny light, standard issue for the 2021 district, a measure introduced to curb rising complaints of officer misconduct. Travis had long since learned to control his outward expressions while wearing the camera, though recently, that discipline had been slipping. Inside the sedan, Malik Johnson exhaled slowly and tried to keep his composure. He was a local high school history teacher who had just left a volunteer tutoring session at the Free Library of Philadelphia on Vine Street. He loved helping disadvantaged teens with reading comprehension and historical research skills. Despite the calm and altruistic life he led, Malik's heart rate skyrocketed whenever he saw flashing blue lights behind him. He'd been pulled over on flimsy suspicion more times than he cared to count. Philadelphia was no stranger to racial profiling, and neither was he. Though Malik was law-abiding, he couldn't quell the knot in his stomach as he watched the officer's silhouette grow near in the side mirror. Not wanting to appear threatening, he placed both hands on the steering wheel. Years of paternal advice had taught him that any sudden movement could be misconstrued. His father had ingrained in him the reality of how easily a traffic stop can become a tragedy. Officer White stood just behind the driver's side window, shining a flashlight into the car with an unyielding glare. He tapped on the window, prompting Malik to lower it, and as the glass slid down, so did the teacher's sense of safety. "Good evening, officer," Malik said with forced composure, keeping his voice low and respectful. "License and registration," Travis barked. No greeting, no explanation for the stop. Malik waited for an explanation that never came. "Yes, sir," he managed, carefully reaching into his glove compartment for the registration. He then pulled out his wallet from his back pocket. Every move was deliberate, telegraphed in slow motion, to avoid giving the officer any excuse to escalate. Malik placed both documents in Travis's hand. Travis studied them for a second, shining his flashlight on Malik's driver's license. "Why were you driving so slowly, Mr. Johnson?" he asked, voice tinged with a sarcasm that implied wrongdoing. The question caught Malik off guard. He was going exactly the speed limit. "Officer, I was following the speed limit." White narrowed his eyes, leaning forward slightly. "You sure you weren't trying to avoid drawing attention to yourself? Maybe you were hoping I wouldn't notice you." Malik's pulse pounded. "I don't know what you mean, sir. I was just heading home." Travis stared for an extra beat, then said, "Stay here," and returned to his squad car with Malik's license and registration. The teacher fought the urge to roll his eyes or curse under his breath. He knew better. He had to keep calm. There was no telling how quickly things might escalate if he said the wrong thing. Back in the patrol car, Travis ran a search on the police database. Malik Johnson's record was clean, squeaky clean. The only things on file were a couple of routine traffic tickets from years back. Frustration simmered in Travis. He always hated it when he pulled someone over, only to find they were immaculate. Secretly, he'd hoped to discover a warrant, something that would justify his baseless stop. Now, he needed to either release Malik with a warning or conjure a reason to keep him there. The latter option appealed to him. The insidious voice inside whispered that perhaps Malik was hiding something, drugs, or even an illegal firearm. Travis's father had always claimed these type of people never traveled light. As he stepped out of the squad car again, Travis decided to push the envelope. Before returning to Malik's window, he flicked off his body camera. It was a subtle move he'd mastered, a small press on the side of the device where a glitch often caused it to power down. He reasoned he'd keep it off only for a moment. A minute, maybe. Just enough time to let his real self slip through. "Step out of the vehicle," Travis ordered sharply, this time without shining the flashlight in Malik's face. Malik's eyes widened. "Why?" he asked, voice quavering. "I haven't done anything. My record is clear." Travis's hand fell to the grip of his holstered gun. He didn't draw it, but the gesture was loud enough in meaning to quell further argument. "Do it now." Heart pounding, Malik complied. The night air felt unnaturally cold against his skin. He could see the reflection of streetlights bouncing off the squad car's pristine surface. He walked carefully, praying this would end smoothly. He was aware of every passing car, anxious that each driver might be recording with their phone, or maybe ignoring him entirely. Fear threaded every thought. He wasn't sure what Travis might do next. "Spread your legs," Travis ordered, stepping around Malik and beginning a brisk pat down. Malik flinched as the cop's hands moved over him, rough and probing. The teacher could already sense the lack of protocol. This was more than a quick check. It felt invasive. He fought down panic, remembering every cautionary tale from his parents. When the frisk yielded nothing, Travis's frustration flared. "What are you hiding?" he growled. "Nothing," Malik replied, trying to keep his voice level. "I'm just trying to comply." If there's something you need me to do, just tell me. Travis frowned. Smart mouth, huh? You think you can outsmart me? His words were laced with hostility. Stand by the hood of your car. Don't move. Malik did as instructed, resting trembling palms on the cool metal of the hood. He glanced around, praying a neighbor, a passerby, someone would intervene. But the night was quiet except for the hum of distant traffic. Any witnesses might assume it was a routine search. After all, from a distance, it looked by the book. The truth was far more sinister. A part of Travis wanted to find something, anything, to justify taking Malik in. He circled to the passenger side, rummaging through the open window. Malik didn't dare move from the hood, but his heart sank. The teacher's bag, resting on the passenger seat, contained only lesson plans, student essays, and a few personal items, like a half-eaten protein bar. He heard the rustling of papers as Travis rifled through them. Then came the unexpected beep. Travis's body camera, which had powered down, suddenly rebooted. The glitch corrected itself, reactivating the lens. In the darkness, Travis didn't notice that the tiny light on the device had blinked back on. He was still rummaging in Malik's personal effects, cursing under his breath. The camera was recording every word, every movement. Malik tried to maintain composure. "Officer, is everything all right?" he ventured, voice trembling just enough to reveal his growing fear. Travis, unaware of the recording, gave a derisive snort. "I'm not done. You might have something hidden under the seat." His tone hinted that he wasn't searching for truth. He was searching for trouble. The twisted satisfaction of having the power in this situation bolstered him. For the next couple of minutes, the officer tore through Malik's vehicle. The interior was soon in disarray, with seat cushions partially lifted and documents strewn about. At one point, Travis pulled out a small, battered notebook filled with Malik's lecture notes. He flipped through the scribbled pages about historical movements and social justice. Travis sneered, but found nothing illegal. His frustration mounted. "Where is it?" Travis asked, voice low and menacing. Malik turned his head ever so slightly. "Where is what, officer?" Travis slammed the notebook down on the passenger seat. "Don't play dumb. You people always have something to hide, even from the hood of the car." Malik heard the venom in the officer's words. A storm raged inside him, part horror, part fury at the blatant racism, but fear held him in place. Any protest could be met with violence. He stared at the reflection of his own eyes in the car's paint job. He hardly recognized the terror reflected there. Finally, after scouring every crevice of the sedan, Travis came up empty. Defeat roiled in his gut, but that only made his anger worse. He slammed the passenger door shut. Walking over to Malik, he decided to give the teacher one last chance to slip up. "You think you're better than me?" Travis growled. "A fancy teacher. Too good for your own neighborhood?" Malik shook his head. "No, officer. I'm just a man trying to get home." Travis's lip curled. "Save your speeches for someone who cares." He pulled out his ticket book. In that moment, the body camera was angled to capture the hateful scowl twisting Travis's features. His voice dropped so low that only Malik and the camera could pick up the words. "I'll make sure you regret mouthing off. You're lucky I'm letting you off with a ticket instead of hauling you in." Malik closed his eyes briefly, feeling a wave of hopelessness. He couldn't fight. He couldn't argue. The imbalance of power was too vast. He could only stand there, trembling, as the officer wrote him a citation for failure to maintain a proper driving speed. A bogus charge, but one that would likely cost Malik both time and money if he tried to contest it in court. When Travis handed Malik the ticket, their gazes locked. In that moment, Malik saw triumph in the cop's expression, twisted glee derived from exerting dominance. The teacher took a steadying breath, then quietly asked, "Am I free to go now?" Travis hovered a moment longer, as though considering an even harsher move. Then, with a curt nod, he released his prey. "Next time, watch yourself," he spat. Malik's legs felt like jelly. but he managed to walk around the front of the car and climb into the driver's seat. Shaken, but determined to keep some semblance of dignity, he started the engine and pulled away, leaving Officer White in the rearview mirror, illuminated by the swirling lights of the squad car. It would have ended there, just another incident of racial profiling that slipped through the cracks, overshadowed by the daily grind of a big city. It might have become only an anecdote that Malik shared with friends in hushed tones about the injustices of the system. But fate had other plans. Travis White forgot to switch off the Bodycam after its glitchy self-reboot. In fact, he left it running for the remainder of his shift. That night, Travis made 2 more stops, both similarly questionable, though neither suspect was forced out of their car or searched so thoroughly. Yet, during each encounter, Travis continued to spout off borderline and sometimes blatantly racist remarks, confident that no one would see or hear them. When Travis's shift ended, he returned to the station and powered off the body camera before it automatically uploaded the footage to the department's servers. He believed that any incriminating evidence would remain lost in the glitch. Unbeknownst to him, the device had functioned perfectly after reactivating. Every word, every sneer, and every moment of Malik's stop was preserved. As standard procedure, the footage was uploaded to an internal server, set to be stored for a mandated period. Usually, Bodycam footage was only reviewed when a complaint was filed, or in the aftermath of a serious incident. Travis White rarely faced official complaints that stuck, partly because he intimidated people into staying silent, and partly because he'd learned to game the system. He never expected Malik Johnson to go through the lengthy, often demoralizing complaint process. But destiny intervened in the form of Detective Eleanor Bryce. Known for her moral compass and sharp intellect, Detective Bryce specialized in internal investigations, a role that often made her unpopular among rank-and-file cops. She'd been transferred to the 2020 district a year earlier to assess the growing number of misconduct accusations. One day, while reviewing random samples of Bodycam footage from the night shift, she stumbled across Officer White's video. She nearly clicked past it, expecting routine traffic stops with no anomalies. However, the length of the video caught her eye: over 5 hours of raw footage. Typically, officers paused their cameras after each interaction for storage reasons, but this footage was continuous, hinting at a camera glitch. Curious, she skimmed through the video, scanning for any red flags. She fast-forwarded through the first half hour, seeing nothing of consequence, just a typical night patrol. It wasn't until about 45 minutes in that she stumbled upon the encounter with Malik Johnson. She watched the stop from start to finish. The absence of any real reason to pull Malik over, the humiliating search, the bigoted remarks, shock mingled with mounting anger within her. Though no physical harm had come to Malik, it was clear that Travis was using his badge to harass an innocent black man. Detective Bryce paused the footage and replayed certain sections, the tension in her chest building. Each time she heard Travis spit out hateful words, her mind flashed to the departmental oath they all swore, the vow to serve and protect all citizens without prejudice. Unbelievable, she whispered to herself, eyes flicking across the frozen frame of Travis's snarling face. She felt a moral duty to ensure justice was done. She knew how the system often worked. Complaints could be buried, evidence misplaced. But the Bodycam footage was explicit, undeniable. She might finally have the ammunition needed to hold Travis accountable, to strip away his power. That day, Detective Bryce began a quiet investigation. She located Malik's information in the traffic stop record and decided to reach out. Official procedure would have been to confront Travis first, but Bryce knew from bitter experience that if Travis caught wind of the inquiry, the footage might mysteriously vanish, or he'd fabricate a story about the suspect resisting arrest. She needed the victim's testimony. She needed to strengthen the case before Travis or any of his allies had a chance to cover it up. Malik's week had been a battle with anxiety. Each time he remembered that traffic stop, his stomach twisted. He told his fiancée, Naomi, about the ordeal. She was outraged, urging him to file a formal complaint. But Malik hesitated. He knew the labyrinthine nature of the complaint process, the emotional toll it took. Often it led nowhere. Then, on a chilly Thursday afternoon, he received a phone call he never expected. "Mr. Johnson?" came a steady female voice. "This is Detective Eleanor Bryce, with the Internal Affairs Division of the Philadelphia Police Department. I was hoping we could meet to discuss a traffic stop you were involved in last week." Malik's heart hammered. For a moment, he feared it was some trick, or maybe he was in trouble. Yes, Detective. Is everything okay?" "I believe it will be," Bryce replied, her tone gentle. "But I have some questions for you regarding Officer Travis White. I think it's important we meet in person. Would you be available tomorrow morning? We could meet at a neutral location, maybe a coffee shop near City Center, just to talk." Though uncertain, Malik felt a small surge of hope. Yes, that works. He agreed to a time and place, and once the call ended, he sat there gripping his phone. Perhaps justice was a possibility after all. They met at a well-lit, busy cafe close to Philadelphia's City Hall. Detective Bryce, dressed in business casual clothes, greeted Malik at a table by the window. She offered a courteous smile, but her eyes carried the weight of seriousness. After ordering coffee, Bryce quietly explained how she had found the Bodycam footage. Malik listened, his emotions oscillating between relief, anger, and a guarded optimism. He recounted every detail of the stop, from the moment he saw the flashing lights behind him to the final dismissive sneer from Travis White. Bryce took notes, nodding sympathetically. When Malik described the racial slurs, Bryce's jaw tightened. "I've seen enough," she said, voice taut. "I have the footage. It shows what he said and how he acted. But your testimony is crucial. If you're willing to make a formal statement, we can launch an official investigation. And I assure you, with the Bodycam recording, there's a strong case. We can't guarantee everything, but I truly believe this will lead somewhere." Malik closed his eyes briefly, relief mingling with the burden of what this would mean. Facing the police system in such a direct way was intimidating, but he thought of all the people who had endured similar harassment or worse. He thought of his students, many of whom might face profiling in the future. If this case could set a precedent, maybe it would protect them. "All right," he said, voice steadier than he felt. "I'll do it. I'll give my statement." Bryce exhaled in relief. "Thank you. I promise I'll handle this with the utmost care and diligence. You're doing the right thing." They continued discussing details how the complaint process would work, potential timelines, and the possibility of hearing dates. Malik learned that Officer White had multiple prior complaints, though none had stuck. This time, with the Bodycam footage as undeniable evidence, the outcome might be different. After their conversation, Malik left the cafe feeling a mix of nerves and empowerment. Detective Bryce returned to the station and began the official internal review process. She knew, from personal experience, that Travis White had friends in high places officers who shared his biases or simply believed in protecting one of their own at all costs. She also knew that removing a bad cop was never straightforward, but the footage was irrefutable. Anyone who watched it would see the truth. Travis White had blatantly abused his authority, motivated by racist assumptions and a thirst for power. Travis White sensed the shift in the station's atmosphere a few days later. People he had joked with in the break room suddenly seemed too busy to chat. Some gave him wary glances. While most officers were still cordial, there was a palpable tension in the air. He noticed Detective Bryce passing through the corridors more often, sometimes with files tucked under her arm, sometimes whispering to colleagues. His gut told him something was brewing. Late that week, Captain Ronald Harris summoned him to a closed-door meeting. Harris was a seasoned officer who disliked controversies, particularly those that attracted media attention. White entered the office, trying to read his captain's expression. It was grim. "Travis," Harris began, folding his hands on the desk. There's been a complaint against you. Serious allegations, racial harassment, unlawful search, and misconduct. Travis feigned surprise, though panic coursed through him. Who's making these accusations, sir? Harris sighed. A teacher named Malik Johnson. This complaint is being backed by Detective Bryce, who has bodycam footage. The mention of footage made Travis's heart plummet. He forced a laugh. Footage, sir? I'm sure there's some misunderstanding. My bodycam was glitchy that night. Harris regarded him coolly. Detective Bryce says the camera recorded everything. She's reviewed it. She claims the evidence is damning. Travis, tell me the truth. Did you step out of line? Travis bristled. He'd always managed to avoid serious consequences before. Captain, I may have used strong language if the suspect was resisting, but I didn't cross any lines. Harris narrowed his eyes. There will be a formal hearing. You're placed on administrative leave pending the investigation. Turn in your badge and your service weapon. Travis froze. It felt like a punch to the gut. Sir, with all respect, I've served this department for over 10 years. Don't make me repeat myself, Harris growled. Badge. Weapon. Now. Reluctantly, Travis complied, feeling a surge of rage. He placed his badge and gun on the desk, his mind spinning with fear and hate. This is a setup, he muttered. I want a union rep. You'll get one, Harris replied coldly. Now go. Let the process work itself out. Travis stormed out of the office, ignoring the curious stares from colleagues. Inside, he was an inferno of resentment. The shame of being stripped of his badge, the symbol of his authority, gnawed at him. He wanted revenge, not just on the department, but especially on that teacher who had the nerve to challenge him. News of the complaint spread quickly through the department and leaked to the press. The Philadelphia Inquirer ran a story titled, "Teacher Files Complaint, Accuses Officer of Racial Harassment," detailing the allegations in broad strokes. They mentioned an unnamed officer from the 2021 district and bodycam evidence under review. Most crucially, the article highlighted how the footage was said to be unambiguous, capturing every word. The story caught fire on social media, with activists calling for accountability. Malik Johnson found himself thrust into an unwanted spotlight. Journalists sought him out at the high school where he taught, and local community leaders invited him to speak about his ordeal. Initially overwhelmed, Malik agreed to a few interviews, hoping to shed light on systemic issues of profiling. Yet, as days passed, the scrutiny became exhausting. He had never asked for fame. All he wanted was a just outcome that would prevent others from suffering the same harassment. Travis White, meanwhile, seethed in his apartment. Officially on leave, he spent hours drinking, glaring at the local TV news when they reported on the pending investigation. One afternoon, he decided to confront an old buddy, Officer Derek Quinn, who still worked in the 2021 district. They met at a bar on the outskirts of town, a dimly lit dive where nobody asked questions. You gotta help me, Travis pleaded, swirling a whiskey. This so-called evidence, Detective Bryce has, there must be a way to discredit it. Quinn, a weary-looking cop with dark circles under his eyes, sighed. I've got a family, Travis. I can't get mixed up in tampering with evidence. If the footage is as bad as they say, there's not much you can do. Travis's temper flared. I'm your friend. You owe me. Owe you for what? We had each other's backs on the street. Yeah, but this is different. Everyone's watching. The department can't sweep this under the rug. Not with the mayor and the media breathing down their necks. Travis slammed his glass onto the bar, drawing looks from a few patrons. Then you're useless to me. Quinn shook his head. I warned you. Everyone did. Your stops were too aggressive, too targeted, and you never listened. Now you gotta face the consequences. Quinn left soon after, leaving Travis alone with his fury and a half-empty bottle. The bitterness in Travis's chest grew heavier by the day, fueling a dangerous impulse to strike back. When the departmental hearing began, Detective Bryce presented the bodycam footage to a panel of senior officers and city officials. At first, the panel watched in stony silence. following the standard procedure. Then the footage showed Travis pulling Malik over and immediately harassing him. The bigoted remarks and vitriol poured forth, each hateful sentence more incriminating than the last. A hush fell over the room as the footage concluded. A couple of officials exchanged looks of dismay. It was worse than they'd anticipated. Next, they reviewed the statements from Malik Johnson and Detective Bryce's internal inquiry. By the end of the session, there was a near consensus. Officer Travis White had blatantly violated departmental policies, the city's code of ethics, and potentially state and federal laws regarding civil rights. Travis's union rep tried to argue the footage was taken out of context or that the camera was malfunctioning, but with so many minutes of continuous recording, the claim rang hollow. The rep pivoted to claim Travis was under severe stress, that his mental health was compromised due to family issues. Yet the hateful language was undeniable. Stress might explain harsh words, but not overt racism, not the repeated slurs. In the end, the hearing concluded with a recommendation that Travis White be terminated from the department. However, the panel also forwarded the case to the district attorney's office for potential criminal charges, official oppression, and civil rights violations. It was a damning blow. Travis sat there, fists clenched, as the decision was read. He felt the walls of his life crumbling around him. All the power he'd wielded, the sense of invincibility, evaporated like morning dew under a scorching sun. Outside the hearing, reporters swarmed for comments. Malik, who had been invited to attend, emerged side by side with Detective Bryce, looking both relieved and apprehensive. Microphones crowded them, voices calling out questions. Do you feel justice has been served? Is this a victory for the community? Mr. Johnson, how do you feel about Officer White's termination? Malik swallowed, choosing his words carefully. I believe this is a step toward accountability. I'm grateful that the truth came out. No one should have to fear the people who are supposed to protect us. The final blow to Travis White's pride came soon after. An announcement that a criminal investigation would proceed. Charges were likely, though the case would take time to wind through the courts. Meanwhile, Travis found himself largely ostracized, even by family members who couldn't condone his actions once the footage was all over the media. Philadelphia was abuzz with condemnation, especially within communities that had long complained about policing abuses. Travis's father, who had once nurtured those racist seeds, was now too frail with illness to intervene. And to Travis's dismay, the older man expressed only disappointment when he learned how far his son had gone. You were supposed to keep your head, his father muttered in a rare phone call. I told you to be cautious. Now you've disgraced the family name. Days became weeks, and the walls closed in on Travis. He avoided leaving his apartment. When he did, he was sometimes recognized, and not in a friendly way. Without a job or a steady paycheck, his financial stability teetered. Legal fees mounted, and each night, he drowned in the bitterness of having lost everything he once took for granted. Meanwhile, Malik's life took an unexpected turn for the better. Though the spotlight initially felt unwelcome, he used it as a platform to advocate against racial profiling and to champion reforms in police training programs. Local leaders invited him to speak at town halls. Students at his high school expressed pride in their teacher for standing up for what was right. He wasn't naive, though. One victory didn't mean the entire system was fixed. Still, it was a beacon of hope. He saw how, for the first time in a while, many in the community felt heard. Donations poured in to support Malik's legal costs, though he soon discovered he might not need them, as civil rights groups stepped forward, offering pro bono assistance. He redirected much of the donated money into scholarships for underprivileged youth, determined to turn his traumatic experience into something positive. Detective Bryce, for her part, continued her internal investigations, rooting out misconduct with renewed vigor. Malik and Bryce developed a respectful friendship, both dedicated to ensuring that Travis White's case was not brushed aside as an outlier, but used as evidence to enforce deeper change within the department. Meetings with city officials and community activists began shaping new guidelines for body cam usage and accountability measures. Eventually, Travis White was indicted on multiple counts, including official oppression and making false statements to cover up his actions. His trial date was set several months down the line. By then, Malik had moved on with his life, returning to the quiet routine of teaching, wedding planning with Naomi, and occasional appearances at community events. But destiny had one final twist in store, one that would forever cement the lessons of accountability and karma. One night, a few weeks before the trial, Travis White, now a disgraced ex-cop, found himself wandering the city streets in a dark, intoxicated stupor. He stumbled through alleys and past shuttered shops, replaying the humiliations of the past months in his mind. People's stares felt like knives. He was lost, without a sense of direction or hope. In a cruel stroke of irony, he was mugged. A pair of desperate thieves cornered him in a dimly lit alley, demanding his wallet. When Travis tried to fight back, he was overpowered. The men grabbed his wallet, phone, and watch. One of them struck him across the face with a blunt object, sending Travis crumpling to the pavement. He lay there, blood trickling from a gash on his forehead, tasting the bitterness of helplessness that he had once inflicted on others. Vulnerable, with no badge to shield him, no authority to call upon, he was left to fend for himself. By the time he managed to stumble to his feet, the muggers were gone. He had nothing, no identity, no phone to call for help, no dignity. The streets he once patrolled, lording over citizens, had betrayed him. Eventually, a passing motorist spotted him and called an ambulance. In the emergency room, Travis drifted in and out of consciousness, grappling not only with physical pain but the crashing realization that he was now the person he used to despise, someone powerless, at the mercy of others. In that vulnerable haze, he saw the face of the nurse who cleaned his wounds, a young black woman who treated him with kindness he'd never shown to people like her. The nurse recognized him from the local news. She was aware of the charges against him, the hateful things he'd done, yet she offered him compassion. That simple act was a final blow to his pride, a stark contrast to his own past cruelty. Lying in a hospital bed, Travis White felt the full weight of his downfall. Karma had come calling, and it showed no mercy. Weeks later, the trial began. The courtroom was packed with reporters, civil rights activists, and concerned citizens. Travis, still bruised from his mugging, walked in with his lawyer, looking haggard and defeated. The prosecuting attorney laid out the case: abuse of power under color of law, repeated instances of harassment, racism, and falsification of official documents. The star piece of evidence was the Bodycam footage, shown on a large screen. Once again, the court listened to the vile remarks and threats, watching Travis rummage through Malik's car. Malik, seated with his legal team, felt his pulse quicken as he watched the footage. The memory of that night came flooding back, and for a moment his hands trembled. Naomi, sitting beside him, squeezed his arm in reassurance. Detective Bryce testified about how she discovered the footage, detailing the internal inquiry. Eventually, Malik took the stand. He spoke calmly, recapping the events of that night and the emotional impact on him. Travis's attorney tried to argue that Malik was exaggerating the pain of the experience, that the officer's words were taken out of context, but the raw footage made any defense feeble. The jury could see and hear for themselves how Travis had singled Malik out, how he spat racist remarks with an unmistakable sneer. In the end, the jury deliberated for only a short time before returning a guilty verdict on multiple counts. Though sentencing was scheduled for a later date, it was clear Travis faced the very real possibility of incarceration. The once arrogant cop hung his head, his future in tatters. For Malik, the verdict was a vindication of truth. As he exited the courtroom, a swirl of camera flashes and microphones tried to capture his reaction. This time, he felt more at peace. He offered a short statement about the importance of justice, and the hope that this case would spur systemic change. Then he departed, hand in hand with Naomi, prepared to resume a life that, at last, felt somewhat free from the specter of that terrible night. Over the following months, Philadelphia's policing policies underwent a series of reforms. Mandatory anti-bias training, increased oversight, and more stringent reviews of bodycam footage were just a few of the measures introduced. Detective Bryce continued her work, now with broader support from city officials who saw the public demand for real change. Malik returned to teaching full-time, focusing on bringing lessons of civil rights history to a new generation. He often reminded his students that progress takes courage, and that one voice, armed with truth, can indeed ignite change. They discussed the complexities of law enforcement and the importance of civic engagement. On the day Travis White was sentenced, Malik chose not to attend. He and Naomi had decided to move forward, planning their wedding and focusing on building a positive future. That evening, they went for a walk through Rittenhouse Square, enjoying the crisp air and the lights adorning the trees. For once, Malik didn't feel his chest tighten when he spotted a police cruiser rolling by. He knew change was incremental, but for the first time in a long while, he felt hopeful. In the hush of that night, he paused to look at Naomi, her eyes reflecting the gentle glow of nearby lampposts. "I'm ready to put it behind me," he said softly. "I'll carry the lessons, but not the pain." She smiled, reaching for his hand. "I think that's what real victory feels like. Moving forward, not just looking back." Malik exhaled, allowing himself a small, triumphant grin. In a city as vast and complex as Philadelphia, where stories of injustice had too often ended in despair, this one had found a path to accountability. And though the world still needed more compassion and fairness, at least one man's courage and the undeniable evidence of a simple body cam had revealed a shocking truth and forced a reckoning. The ripples of that truth might just reach further than anyone imagined, changing hearts, policies, and futures for years to come. In the end, a single night captured on a flickering lens exposed how prejudice can corrode not just a uniform, but an entire community's sense of safety. One brave teacher, determined to seek justice, transformed heartbreak into hope, and a self-righteous cop, once untouchable, witnessed his own lies dismantled by the unrelenting power of truth. This story isn't just about one city, one officer, or one victim. It's a reminder of what can happen when ordinary people stand against injustice and insist that respect and equality are not privileges, but rights. If you found this story powerful, please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to this channel. By doing so, you help amplify voices calling for justice and accountability. Spread the word so that more people can learn from this cautionary tale, and join us in shaping a world where integrity triumphs and the truth always finds its way.